She said, "You're my stability, he's my passion," like that made betrayal sound philosophical. For a second I honestly thought I'd misheard her. We were standing in our kitchen, both of us barefoot on the cold tiles, the washing machine humming in the background like some oblivious soundtrack. She had one hand on the back of a chair, knuckles white, the other wrapped around her mug, even though the tea inside had gone cold 20 minutes ago. I could feel my own heartbeat in my ears, a weird pulsing behind my eyes. There was that ringing silence that happens when something big lands in the middle of a room, and both of you are pretending it's not there yet. And then she said it again, slower this time, like she was reading it off some Pinterest quote. "You're my stability, he's my passion." I laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh, more like a short, broken bark that surprised both of us. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, because my brain was scrambling and that's the first thing that made it out of my mouth. That's your line. You cheat on me and you turn it into a TED talk about balancing your emotional portfolio." Her chin trembled. She looked at me like I was the one being ridiculous. "I'm trying to explain," she said, voice already too soft, that tone she uses when she wants to make sure she sounds reasonable. "You said you wanted honesty, Jake. This is me being honest." We'd been together for 9 years when my wife, 32F, I'm 34M, decided to break my life into two neat labels like that. I'm on a throwaway because a couple of our friends basically live on Reddit, and frankly I don't have the energy to navigate "wait, is this you?" texts right now. If this ends up on our true off my chest or our relationship advice, fine. I'm not even sure what I want, except to get this out of my head and into words that don't keep looping at 3 a.m. We met in university, which I guess is already part of the problem because we never really knew adult life without each other. She'll be Emma here, because typing my actual wife's name makes me feel weirdly exposed, even under fake account. We were both 19, both doing completely different degrees. I was doing civil engineering because I liked maths and my dad said, "At least you'll always have work," which is basically how every brown kid I know picked their degree. Emma was doing a double major in English and film studies, which her parents hated but she loved. I met her at a mutual friend's house party, the kind where cheap fairy lights are stapled to door frames, the music is just loud enough that you have to lean in to hear each other, and someone always spills beer on the carpet in the first 30 minutes. She was sitting on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs, arguing with some guy about whether romantic comedies had ruined the concept of love. I remember hearing her say, "No, people ruined love. Films just showed us how dramatic it could be," and I turned my head because it was such a confident, big statement for someone wearing a hoodie with a cartoon frog on it. Our friend dragged me over to introduce us. "Jake, this is Emma," he shouted over the music. "Emma, this is the dude who solved the mystery of why our shower was flooding." "That just means I pulled hair out of a drain," I said. She smiled at me with this lopsided grin, eyes bright. "Heroic," she said. "Romantic comedies should write about you." I rolled my eyes. "Trust me, no one is making a movie about my life." "Not with that attitude," she said, and took a sip from her red cup. That was her thing. She always saw stories where I saw logistics, where I saw how do we get from A to B. She saw what's the arc, what's the symbolism. It was fun in the early years. She made my life feel big. I made her life feel grounded. That was the trade, unspoken but understood. We started dating a few weeks after that party. It moved fast in the way things do at that age when your calendar is mostly classes, casual work, and trying to see each other as much as possible. We'd stay up until 3 a.m. in her share house room, eating 2-minute noodles out of a saucepan and talking about everything and nothing. "You're so steady," she'd say back then, tracing a finger over my wrist. "I've only ever dated guys who were all fireworks and no follow-through. It's exhausting. You feel like, I don't know, a harbor." "A harbor," I repeated. "So I'm full of water and occasionally a big ship crashes into me." She laughed. "You know what I mean, safe." At 19, being called safe by a pretty girl who liked my bad jokes felt like the highest compliment. We graduated. She bounced around a few jobs, bookstore, cafe, retail, while trying to break into something more creative. I went straight into a graduate program with a construction firm. We rented a crappy little one-bedroom apartment with mold in the bathroom and neighbors who thought 2 a.m. was prime time for drum practice. We thought it was the best thing in the world because it was ours. The first time she talked about marrying me, we just had a stupid fight about finances. I'm fairly conservative with money. I like budgets, spreadsheets, knowing what's going where. She is or was very much a money comes, money goes, experiences over savings person. We'd nearly torn each other's heads off over a particularly ridiculous phone bill and an impulse weekend away she'd booked with her friend without telling me. She'd gone quiet afterwards, curled up on the couch with her legs tucked under her, fingers tugging at the loose threads on the cushion. "Do you even want this?" she'd asked suddenly. Want what? This, she said, gesturing around the room. Us, the arguing about phone bills and splitting Netflix payments, the boring stuff. I sat down next to her. Yeah, I said, I do. The boring stuff is life. I want all of it with you, not just the fun nights out or the cute Instagram selfies. She looked at me like I'd just handed her the moon. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, she said. You want the boring with me. We got engaged that year. It wasn't some huge public proposal. I'm not that guy. I cooked dinner in our tiny kitchen, almost burned the garlic bread. Then afterward I pulled out the ring I'd been sweating over for weeks and asked her, voice shaking, if she'd marry me. She cried, said yes. Our friends posted those so happy for you guys photos. Our parents did the loud clapping phone call thing. It felt right. We got married 2 years after that. Smallish venue, fairy lights strung up nicer than the house party ones. Emma wore this simple satin dress that caught the light when she moved. I remember standing at the end of the aisle, my heart hammering, thinking, this is it. This is my person. We're going to do the whole life thing together. In our vows, she said, you're my home. I said, you're my favorite person. We both cried. People said they could feel the love in the room. It wasn't fireworks. It felt like something deeper, like building a house brick by brick instead of setting one on fire for show. We settled into married life, which is code for, we worked, we cooked, we argued about chores, we had sex, we got tired, we went on occasional date nights when we remembered. I got a promotion. She finally landed a job she actually wanted, a junior producer role at a small media company that did commercials, music videos, and occasionally small indie films. It felt like something clicked for her. I finally feel like I'm waking up, she said one morning, rushing around with her coffee, almost late for her first day. Like I've been underutilized as a human. I kissed her forehead. Go utilize yourself then, I said, half asleep. Her job meant longer hours, weird schedules, shoots on weekends. I was proud of her, honestly. She'd spent years being told stuff like, you know you'll never make money doing creative things right by well-meaning aunts. Now she was on sets, working with directors, doing the things she talked about at that first party. At first, that's all her stories were about. The chaos of shoots, the ridiculous demands of clients, the fun of seeing something go from script to screen. She'd come home buzzing, dumping all her gear on the floor, talking a mile a minute while I stirred pasta sauce. Then slowly, a name started showing up in every story. Elliot suggested this shot, and it was genius. Elliot and I had to stay late to re-edit everything because the client changed their mind last minute. I swear, if Elliot wasn't there, the director would have had a meltdown. I didn't think much of it at first. People have work friends, work besties even. She knew what I did was boring to her. I figured she'd found someone who got it in a way I couldn't. The first time I met him was at a wrap party for some music video they'd shot. It was in this converted warehouse with fairy lights and craft beer, and everyone dressed like they'd fallen out of a cool people in the city montage. I showed up in my usual jeans and a button-up shirt, feeling like an accountant even though I'm an engineer. Emma bounced over, already half a drink in, grinning. You came, she said, kissing me quickly. Come meet everyone. She dragged me through the crowd, doing quick introductions. This is the director, this is the editor, this is the client who nearly died when the fog machine broke. Then she stopped in front of a guy leaning against the bar. This is Elliot, she said, a little glow in her voice. The genius. He was annoyingly attractive in that artsy way. Late 30s maybe, messy hair that probably took effort to look that messy, rolled up sleeves, a tattoo peeking out from under one cuff. He had that I've been to Berlin and I have opinions about underground cinema vibe. Ah, the husband, he said, offering his hand. Nice to finally meet the infamous Jake. Emma talks about you all the time. Oh, I said, shaking his hand. Yeah, he said, you're the one who built the bookshelf that doesn't wobble, and the guy who makes spreadsheets for holiday packing. I shot Emma a look. She grinned, unashamed. He likes systems, she said. It's cute. Systems are underrated, Elliot said, like he hadn't just insulted me and praised me in the same breath. We made small talk. He was charming, of course he was. People who climb creative industries usually are. He asked about my work in a way that sounded like he was actually listening. He made some self-deprecating jokes about selling art to people who think content is anything with a logo on it. At some point, he and Emma drifted into deep conversation about some director I'd never heard of. I excused myself to get another drink and spent the rest of the night talking to the sound guy about football. On the way home in the Uber, Emma leaned against my shoulder. He's brilliant, she said. You can just throw ideas around with him for hours. It's like playing catch with someone who's actually paying attention. Yeah, he seems intense, I said. In a good way, she said. You'd like him if you got to know him. I like the sound guy, I said. He had a dog. She laughed, kissed my cheek. You're ridiculous, she said. The thing is, it didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where I thought, she's going to cheat. It was more like watching a tide come in and telling yourself it's fine, until suddenly the water, at your ankles. Little things started to shift. Her phone was always face up on the coffee table before. Now it started living face down. It's just work, she'd say when it buzzed at 11 p.m., thumb flying over the screen. We're on a deadline. She started staying over on set more often. We're shooting late and it's an hour back, she'd say. The company's paying for a motel. It doesn't make sense to come home. There'd be selfies from the motel room, her in a hoodie, hair in a messy bun, captioned dead. She changed how she dressed for work. I know, women are allowed to change their style. I'm not saying she dressed for him, but there was a noticeable shift from whatever clean jeans I can find to carefully curated effortless cool. New leather jacket, new boots, a particular red lipstick that made her look dangerous. When I asked about it once, half playful like, "Ooh, who are you trying to impress?" she smiled and said, "Myself," in a tone that made me feel like a jerk for even asking. One night, about 6 months after that rap party, I was doing our usual Sunday reset, meal prep, laundry, trying to pretend Monday didn't exist, when she breezed in later than she'd said she would. "Hey," I said, looking up from the chopping board, "thought you'd be home by 6. "There were issues," she said, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door a little too hard. "The client wanted last-minute changes, shocker." She smelled different, not just of sweat and cheap deodorant like she usually did after a long day. There was a hint of cologne I didn't recognize. I asked, stupidly, "New perfume?" She blinked, then looked down at her shirt like it would provide an answer. "Oh," she said. "No, Elliot spilled something on me and I borrowed his hoodie for a bit. Guess it stuck." I nodded, chopped the carrot in my hand into smaller and smaller pieces. Later that night in bed, I reached for her and she flinched, barely, but enough. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I'm just wiped. Can we not tonight?" "Sure," I said, "of course." I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. The fan whirred softly above us. "Are we okay?" I asked into the darkness. She sighed. "Why do you always ask me that after sex or when we don't have sex?" "Because that's usually when you seem far away," I said. She turned towards me, even though I couldn't see her face clearly. "We're fine, Jake." She said, "We're just busy. Grown-ups. This is what marriage looks like, remember? You said you wanted the boring stuff." I wanted to say, I wanted the boring stuff with you, not the distant, resentful stuff, but I swallowed it. I didn't want to start another fight in the dark. The actual discovery, when it came, was both more mundane and more devastating than any dramatic scenario I'd imagined. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I'd come home early because one of our projects got delayed and my boss said, "No point you sitting here staring at the wall, go enjoy the daylight for once." Emma texted that she'd be home late. Night shoot went over, don't wait up with a yawning emoji. I thought I'd be alone, but when I opened the door I heard her laptop singing its little notification noises from the dining table. She'd clearly left in a rush. There was a half-drunk coffee, her notebook open with doodles and shot lists scrawled across it. I'm not someone who snoops by default. That's not me trying to sound noble, it's just not how my brain works. But as I walked past, a message popped up on the screen like a punchline delivered by the universe. It was from Elliot. The preview line said, "Still thinking about last night. The way you, then the rest disappeared as the notification faded." I froze, stood there in the middle of the living room, grocery bag still in my hand, heart in my throat. I could have walked away. I could have closed the laptop. I didn't. I sat down, the laptop was unlocked. Her messages app was open. There was a thread at the top, Elliot work, cute. I clicked it. What I saw wasn't explicit in the screenshot and get banned from Reddit way, but it also wasn't anything you could mistake for just colleagues. There were late-night messages about how stressed they were, sure, but also, "I swear, when you stood up to that director today, I nearly fell in love with you all over again. Don't say that," from her. "I'll get a big head." "Too late," from him. "You already do, it's hot." Photos of them on set, closer and closer together over time. A selfie of her in that red lipstick, captioned for you, "Because the client doesn't deserve this much power." His reply, "I can think of better uses for that mouth." I sat there, scrolling, feeling like I was reading a book where the main character hadn't realized yet that the person they trust is the villain. There were gaps where you could tell they'd switched to calling or talking in person. No explicit, let's meet at this hotel and do XYZ, but enough references to last time and that room with the terrible wallpaper that I didn't need the details. My hands were shaking. I don't know how long I sat there, the sunlight shifting across the floor, my mind flipping between disbelief and this weird, cold clarity. At some point I heard myself say, out loud, okay. Like if I could frame it as a problem to solve, it would hurt less. I took photos of the messages with my phone, not because I thought I'd need to prove anything, cheating had already happened whether I had screenshots or not, but because I knew my brain would try to minimize it later. Maybe it wasn't that bad, maybe you overreacted. I needed something to ground me when the gaslighting from her or from my own head started. Then I closed the laptop, put the groceries away, sat on the couch and stared at the wall until my phone buzzed. Emma, sorry babe, going to crash at my sister's tonight. We wrapped late and I'm dead. Love you Roman 20. I stared at that love you for a long time. Then I typed we need to talk, come home, 3 dots, stop, 3 dots again. Is everything okay? No, I replied, but we'll talk when you get here, please just come home. She didn't reply for 15 minutes. My heart spent every one of those minutes trying to punch out of my chest. Finally, okay, give me an hour. That hour felt longer than our entire 9 years together. I paced, I sat, I stood in the shower and let the water hit my face without really feeling it. I took deep breaths like every anxiety app ever has told me to. I still felt like I was going to throw up. When I heard her keys in the door, my legs went kind of numb. She walked in wearing that red lipstick, which is the kind of small detail that sticks in your brain forever. Her hair was tied up, jacket slung over her arm. She looked surprised to see all the lights on. Hey, she said cautiously, you're home early. So are you, I said. She kicked off her shoes, looking from me to the couch like she was trying to gauge the danger level. What's going on? I didn't say anything, just walked over to the dining table, opened her laptop, clicked the messages icon, and turned the screen towards her. For a second, she genuinely looked confused. Then her eyes focused, and I watched the blood drain from her face. She made this tiny sound, halfway between a gasp and a groan, and sank into the chair like her knees had given out. Jake, she said, I can explain. My jaw clenched. Please don't, I said. Don't say it just happened. Don't say it, not what it looks like. I'm begging you not to insult me on top of everything else. She scrubbed her hands over her face, smearing the lipstick at one corner. For a moment she looked small, like the uni girl in the frog hoodie, not this stranger who'd been having an emotional and physical affair behind my back. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she said. That was the wrong thing to say. I actually laughed, sharp and wrong. Oh, I'm so sorry I ruined the reveal for you, I said. Was this supposed to be part of your 3-act structure? Big confession over cocktails and closure music. She went quiet, her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall yet. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. How long? I asked. She looked down. A few months, she said, and it was almost believable. I opened my phone, flicked to one of the photos I'd taken, a message from nearly a year ago. I slid it across the table. Try again, I said. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Okay, she whispered. A year, on and off, I repeated, like a light switch or a tap or your sense of loyalty. She winced like I'd hit her. It wasn't like that, she said. Then how was it? I asked. Because right now it looks pretty straightforward. You had a husband at home and a coworker in hotel rooms. Silence stretched. The washing machine beeped in the laundry like an idiot, oblivious. A car drove past outside. My whole world had tilted, but the neighborhood was still doing its thing. She finally spoke. I was lonely, she said. I felt invisible. You were always at work or tired or stressed. I'd come home buzzing from a shoot and you'd be half asleep on the couch. It felt like we were living parallel lives. I swallowed hard. You could have told me that, I said. You could have said, hey, I'm feeling neglected. Can we talk? Can we change something? What you don't get to do is skip that step and jump straight to Elliot's bed. Her eyes flashed. I did tell you, she said. So many times. I kept saying I wanted more spontaneity, more excitement, that I felt like we were roommates. You always said the same things. Work will calm down, we'll plan a holiday. Once we have the house sorted, we'll have time. Everything was always in the future. With him, it was now. There it was, the script. I could almost see the lines scrolling behind her eyes. So you decided I'm your long-term investment, and he's your high-risk, high-reward stock, I said. She shook her head, frustrated. That's not, you're twisting it. I'm repeating it, I said. You literally just said future versus now. She inhaled, exhaled like she was about to dive underwater. Okay, she said. Fine, if you want it blunt, you're my stability, he's my passion. And that's when we loop back to the beginning, to those words hanging in the air like cigarette smoke. I stared at her. Do you hear yourself? I asked quietly. Like, do you actually hear how that sounds? Her eyes were wet now. I know it sounds bad, she said, but it's true. You're the person who's always been there, my rock, the one I can rely on. He's the person who makes me feel alive, inspired. Does it have to be one or the other? Can't we acknowledge that people can fill different roles in your life? I blinked. Sure, I said slowly. You can have friends and mentors and whatever, but when one of those roles involves you getting naked with them while married to me, yes, actually, it does have to be one or the other. She flinched. It's not just sex, she said. Wow, I said. Cool, great, that makes me feel so much better. I mean it, she insisted. It's connection. We talk about things I can't talk about with you. He gets the creative part of me. When we're together, I feel like my best self. With you, I feel like, she trailed off. Say it, I said. She squeezed her eyes shut. Like I'm already 40, she said. Like my life is already decided. House, kids, PTA meetings, dinner at the same 3 restaurants, a calendar of responsibilities. And that's my fault, I said. It wasn't a question. It's how you are, she said. You plan, you organize, you budget. It's amazing in so many ways. I couldn't have gotten through my 20s without you. But I'm so scared, Jake. Scared that if I blink, I'll wake up one day and realize I never actually lived. I let that sink in. All the times she told me I was her safe place. All the jokes about my spreadsheets, my meal prep. My love of routine. The way she'd said it with affection at first, and with increasing irritation over the last couple of years. So your solution, I said slowly, was to find someone who made you feel alive, and build a secret life with him, while keeping the stable husband at home to pay the bills and do the boring stuff. Tears finally spilled over. That's not what it was, she said. I wasn't using you. How would you describe it then? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, you wanted 2 versions of adulthood, the cozy one and the chaotic one, and you didn't want to choose, so you lied to both of us. He knows I'm married, she said quietly. Even better, I said, so he's a coward too. We went in circles for a while. She cried. I yelled once and felt immediately tired, older. She apologized 1,000 times. She said she hated herself. She said she never meant to hurt me. If you didn't want to hurt me, you shouldn't have done it, I said. Everything after that is damage control. Do you want to try to fix this? She asked at one point, voice so small I almost didn't hear it. I can end it, completely. I already told him it's over. We can do therapy. We can find us again. I looked at her, and the thing is, some part of me, the part that remembered the frog hoodie and the kitchen proposals, and the girl who fell asleep on my chest during terrible movies, wanted to say yes, wanted to rewind. But there was another part of me, louder for once, that thought about all those messages, all those hotel rooms, all the times she'd come home and curled around me in bed after being with him, hiding him in the same mouth that told me she loved me. I don't know if I can, I said honestly. I don't know how to be with you and not see this. Every time you say you're working late, I'll wonder. Every time you get excited about a project, I'll think of him. She sobbed, so that's it. I didn't end us, I said quietly. You did, I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise. We slept in separate beds that night, me in our bed, her on the couch, which felt backward somehow, but I didn't have the energy to argue. I lay there, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, feeling like my entire life had been cut in half. Half of it was memories I didn't know what to do with anymore. The other half was this blank, terrifying space. The days after that were a blur. We told our families. My mum went from, "Are you sure you can't work it out?" to, "I will personally key his car," in about 10 seconds once she heard the details. Emma's mum texted me some sanctimonious crap about marriage is complicated and temptations of the modern world, which made me want to throw my phone into the ocean. We started the practical stuff. Separate bank accounts, who keeps the apartment, me, for now because the lease is in my name, dividing up furniture. It felt cold, administrative. I'd be sitting there splitting up spoons and suddenly remember a random date night that had felt so important at the time, and I'd have to sit down because my legs felt like they were made of jelly. Emma moved in with her sister temporarily. I boxed up her things and labeled them with neat Sharpie writing. Books, Emma, clothes, Misk. At one point, I found the frog hoodie at the bottom of a drawer. I sat on the floor holding it for 10 minutes, then stuffed it into a box without letting myself smell it. We tried one session of couples therapy because both of us are apparently masochists. The therapist was very calm, asked good questions. "Why are you here today?" she asked us, classic opener. "I want to understand," I said, "and I want to be sure I'm not making a rash decision out of anger." Emma said, "I want to see if there's anything left to salvage." "Do you think there is?" the therapist asked her. Emma looked at me, really looked, for maybe the first time since that night in the kitchen. "I don't know," she said, voice breaking. "I love him, but I think I love the idea of him more. I don't know who he is anymore, I just know who he was to me." That hurt, but it was probably the most honest thing she said. "Jake," the therapist said, "do you see a path where you can rebuild trust?" I thought about it, about the constant vigilance it would require, about becoming the guy who checks phones, who interrogates work trips, who flinches at every notification sound. That's not who I want to be. "I don't see a path where I trust her like before," I said. "I see a path where I'm always half waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I don't think that's fair to either of us." The therapist nodded, like she'd heard that 100 times. "Sometimes," she said, "the most loving choice is to acknowledge that." We left separately, that felt symbolic. Since then, it's been weird. I blocked Elliot on everything because I didn't trust myself not to cyberstalk him. I did stalk him once, saw a photo of him at some festival looking wild and free, and had to close my phone before I threw it across the room. A mutual friend told me, because gossip has a way of traveling, that Emma and he never officially became a couple. Maybe they're still circling each other. Maybe it fizzled the second it had to exist in daylight. Part of me cares. Part of me very much does not want to know. I'm doing individual therapy now, untangling all the ways I turned being stable into being a doormat. Because yeah, she betrayed me, but I also ignored my own discomfort a lot. I saw red flags and told myself, don't be needy, don't be jealous, don't be that guy. I kept giving benefit of the doubt because I wanted to be the chill husband, not the controlling one. My therapist asked me, what did stability mean to you, and what did it mean to her? For me, I said, stability meant showing up, being someone you can lean on, building a life together that isn't constantly on fire. And for her, I think stability meant predictability, I said, a story she'd already read, something comforting but ultimately boring, a coot she liked but also wanted to throw out and replace with something exciting. Can stability and passion coexist? My therapist asked. I thought they already did, I said. I thought we were both. The thing I keep coming back to is that line, you're my stability, he's my passion. She meant it like a justification, a way of splitting herself into two neat halves so she wouldn't have to own the mess. Stability goes here, passion goes there, look how tidy it all is if you squint. But life isn't tidy. It's not a character sheet where you assign home husband and fun lover and call it personal growth. You don't get to turn someone into infrastructure while you go chase fireworks. I'm not going to pretend I'm over it. Some days I feel almost normal. I go to work, I crack stupid jokes with my coworkers, I come home and cook for one. I watch movies that don't remind me of her. I sleep through the night. Other days, a song comes on the radio that we used to dance to in the kitchen, and I have to sit in my car for 5 extra minutes collecting myself. I see couples in the supermarket arguing over which pasta to buy, and I feel this aching envy, like, you have no idea how fragile this is. Friends are split. Some tell me, you're better off, bro, she didn't appreciate you. Others try to explain her like a weather pattern. She's always been like that, chasing intensity. You're just collateral. I don't know which version hurts more. I'm trying not to let this turn into, all passion is bad, all creatives are selfish, never date anyone who uses the word alive unironically. I don't want to become the guy who only dates accountants because they're less likely to run off with a coworker in a band. I also don't want to damn myself to being someone's stability, again, if what they actually mean is safety net while I do whatever I want. If there's any advice I'd give to anyone reading this who recognizes themselves on either side, it'd be this. If you find yourself thinking in those terms, this person is my stability, that one is my passion, pause, really look at what you're doing. You're not being deep or enlightened. You're turning people into functions in your story. And if one of those people doesn't know what role you've assigned them, you're not just confused, you're cruel. And if you're the one being called stability in that slightly condescending tone, pay attention. There's a difference between being someone's safe place and being their emotional furniture. I don't know yet what my life looks like without Emma. We're in the middle of sorting the legal stuff. We'll probably be divorced by the end of the year. That sentence still hits weird. But I do know this. I want a love where I don't get sliced into a role, where I can be steady and still be seen as a person with my own wants, not just a backdrop for someone else's passion. Stability isn't the opposite of passion. It's the thing that lets passion exist without burning the whole house down. She didn't understand that. Maybe she will one day. Maybe she won't. That's not my problem anymore. For now, my stability is me. My routines, my friends, my boring but strangely comforting spreadsheets. And maybe someday there'll be someone who thinks that's not just useful, but actually enough.